We will work today. I will give a small presentation with certain facts and figures prepared especially for today's meeting. That thing is supposed to give you all the answers you want to have. If not, please feel free to ask for details. I will give them to you. I will base on the report that I did on the session for the development of transport system in the cities, and I will brief you on several topics. By 2020, in Moscow, there will be constructed around 700 kilometers of new roads. New roads that will be constructed, their main accent will be done to the augmentation of the facility to use the road network within Moscow. It will decrease the time necessary for doing your route and discharge the Moscow railroad ring and the third ring road of Moscow. Today in Moscow, we have one of the highest indexes in the world of charging the road. For one car, we have around 25 square meters of space. As compared to the American cities, their indexes are around 150 square meters. In European cities, this index is a bit less, but still very different from what we have in our city. Moreover, in Moscow, in the city of Moscow and the region of Moscow, inhabitants have around 7 million private cars, without talking about trucks. During 2014, in Moscow Transport Hub, 250,000 new cars were bought. Even taking into account a certain decline in the economy, the Moscow Transport Hub will not change its number of cars that will be bought. And by 2020, we will have 1.5 million of new cars on our streets. Each day in Moscow, around 3 million unique cars are on the roads. Our Moscow transportation system works comfortably when you have at the same time 500,000 cars. If we have more, we immediately fall into traffic jams, and no private cars or bus can circulate easily on the roads of our city. We did a survey in 2013. We demanded to do such a survey and to ask car drivers. The question was simple. How many car drivers is eager to replace their private cars by public transport? If we will ensure a good work of the public transportation system. What were the results? They have shown that around 25% of car drivers are ready to change their cars for public transport under the condition that this public transportation will work much better than now. What are the main issues? What were the main triggers for car drivers to take or not to take such an important decision? If we're talking about surface transportation, it's speed and predictability, and then security. In metro, the main issue is the comfort in the when you take metro station and the accessibility of metro stations. For railroads, priorities are the same as for metro. Other related issues were the possibility to buy freely tickets and other related issue. In 2010, we did more or less the same survey. The priorities have changed. Why? Because in such a big issue of buying a ticket for metro is not on the agenda anymore because we have Troika card, then we have Wi-Fi coverage all over metro, so it's not an issue anymore. Next thing, by 2020, we want to increase the amount of passenger places in the public transportation system for 20% as compared to 2010. In 2010, the capacity of public transport in a million places was 31 million. By 2020, after the implementation of all our initiatives, this amount should be equal to 42 million passenger places by day. How we will do that? By increasing the capacity of metro, and which means by construction of the third metro ring road Moscow. Then we will increase the speed for the surface transport. Another measure is are the new lines of suburban trains and the opening of the traffic on the Moscow railroad ring. Next thing, I mentioned already it. Today, within the system, more than 60% of delays on the surface transportation system is related to the overcharging of the road network. About 50% are due to the fact when car drivers enter to the private lines for public transportation system. Around 15% is for the small car accidents where we have no victims, only 2 participants, and those cases can be managed over Europrotocol, but unfortunately it is used only in 2 cases in Moscow. That's why with our colleagues from the Moscow government, our mission is to popularize the use of Europrotocol when car drivers can cope with those issues without calling police on the place of car accident. Next question that I want to touch upon, in 2015, we will have 60 kilometers of new reserved lines for public transportation in case of a good development of road network. We will reform the controlling transportation system when I mentioned it already. We plan that the result in the end of this reform that will occur in 2015 will decrease the interval between the buses for 50%. Then we will restrict the distance between 2 bus stops and it will be equal to 400 meters. The decrease in doubling also. Now we have 40% of private transportation companies. We will not decrease it. In the new model, there will be also 40% of private transportation company. They will invest in 2015 around 10 billion rubles for buying the rolling stock. And they will have a 5-year contract with the government of Moscow guaranteeing the 100% payment of the work of public transportation system in Moscow. Troika ticket
is one of the intermodal type of tickets that exist today. So more than 65% of all the public transport use are paid with the Troika cards. It's about 4 million users per day. So the time of waiting in the line for buying a ticket has declined 4 times, and now and all the other figures are better as compared to 2010. In 2015-2016, we want to introduce about 20,000 of new transport navigation elements in metros, in subway, and also in public transportation networks of the Moscow city. After the start of the work of the bike rental system in 2013, we summarized the results of our work in 2014, and the number of the users of this system has increased by 20% as compared to 2013, partly because we physically increased the number of the shops where you can rent a bike, partly because the number of bicycle users doubled. The second point I wanted to speak about is that as per the results of 2014, after the implementation of our transport program 2010-2014, we bought 700 new metro cars and 4.5 thousand new buses, 3,050 new electrical train cars and tramways. Our program up to 2020 will lead to buying some much more subway cars and 5,000 new buses, tramways and trolley buses, including partly the buses bought by private companies, and buying about 1,000 new electric train cars. The transition of Moscow subway to the 30-year-old life cycle contract has helped us to decrease by 25% all the budget expenditures, and we will try to use this model when signing the contracts to buy buses and cars and tramways starting next year. And briefly about taxis. When we formed the program 2010 in Moscow, our main goal was by 2020 to give 45,000 permissions for legal taxi services. And as the results of 2014, we have already delivered this program. So we have already distributed 48,000 permissions and licenses. And by the end of 2015, there will be 55,000 licensed taxis in Moscow. And we will carry on, subsidize financially these programs. We will buy more cars, taxis. And in the budget of our next year, we will put about 100 million rubles for the leasing rates for private companies and private organizations that will decide to start the taxi business in the city. The next year is planned as a year with the strong emphasis on the constant, open, and two-side in communication with the passengers. And the goal with this communication is to improve the work of city transport system and to create new public transportation systems, to discuss the questions of parkings and other initiatives related to the work of city transport system. And of course, my opinion is that seeing the development of the transport city of network, all the drivers and initiatives, as we call them on this forum, as their IT technologies, they can be realized. But the transport system is the base that will make it possible, that will make all the other initiatives or other drivers possible. And that will be a motivator for our city. So those are briefly the main things I wanted to tell you. And if you want to ask anything, I'm ready to answer your questions. So, yes. Hodova Tamara from RIA Novosti. Maxim Stanislavovich, you said that your protocol currently is used less than 1%. Why is it like that? And how do you want to popularize this among the Moscow citizens? Then firstly, I think that it is mostly because it is only a month and a half that we have taken this decision about the protocol and the procedure of the protocoling of car accidents. And it is partly related to the business of the insurance companies. I think that the insurance companies, there are many ways how they can interact, how they can do their own things. But our main goal is to inform the owners of the cars, and if it is needed, to provide some help to them if they can't agree upon something with their investment with insurance companies. Maxim Stanislavovich, I'm Svetlana Kazantseva from Kudok newspaper. About the railroad systems, how does Moscow government want to improve the railroad systems in Moscow? So you said that you're going to buy more than 2,000 of new cars. What are you going to do? The new express buses. Speaking about the infrastructure development and radio infrastructure development of Moscow railroad system, I have to say that in the budget, 2020 budget of Moscow, there are 47 billion rubles that are planned to put into to use for these programs. They are not even on balance of Moscow government. And we together as Moscow region, starting next year, plan to introduce a 15-year tender for the best transportation companies in Moscow railroad network system, so that the winner of this tender will buy more cars for electrical regional trains. Speaking about the two-story and two-level electric trains, I don't think that it is good to buy the trains like that, because it is not very efficient on the lines that don't have many stations for the trains, but on the lines that have only few stations, maybe it is good to have the two-level trains. Konstantin Morozov from ProTransport Journal. Two questions. First, about the accident of 15th July in Moscow subway. Do you think that you have already improved the situation? And the second question, 50,000 cars are meant to buy as buses. Do you want to buy a green type of buses, like for example eco buses and electric buses, or not? Well, according to the decision by the government, by 2020, the 50% of all the buses will be gas fueled, and we want to deliver this program. We have the plan. We have signed a number of contracts with Gazprom and Rosneft, and the colleagues said that they are ready to invest their money in the gas fueling infrastructure. And currently, it is the main problem. It is the main problem in transition to gas fuel in public transportation. The second part, we don't want to limit our program to buying only trolley buses and tramways, and we are ready to study all the possibilities to buy electrical buses, if they are tested if they are successful after at least 1 year test on Moscow roads. So we are open to the discussion. And the companies, both international and Russian companies, are ready to, including Mosgotrans, are ready to provide us with the equipment for the test of the electrical buses. And if this equipment, if the tests show the success of this project, we will be ready to buy these buses. Speaking about the accidents in the subway, about the reasons of this accident, as far as I know, we are still studying the causes of this accident, so it is still not clear. But inside the subway, there have been carried out a number of works to change the schedule, to change all the maintenance works, and of course to change the responsibility level and personal control of the top manager, of the subway top managers, and also of the people that work directly on stations, in trains, and so on. So we are starting to change the internal schedule and control system in Moscow subway stations. So, Lena, do you have the microphone? I have two questions. One, during the roundtable discussion, it said that the tariffs will go up, but it will be as a function of inflation. But there are different prognoses of inflation. So what is your main So what is your main? What are you oriented by? Do you orient on 2015 or not? And the second, what is the paid parking zone that you said about? It's for 2015. No, we don't want to expand this. Yes, you heard what you wanted to hear. So what are your plans for 2015? If it's not a dramatical expansion, then what is it? So, firstly, I'll answer your question about tariffs. As you know, from 2000, starting from 2010, the Moscow government started to limit their price of the tariffs on public transport and prices in public transportation. So they were kept on a constant level. And our main goal is first to limit the inflation level. The second is to improve the situation with the wages, real wages in Moscow. And of course, our main milestone is the start of 2014 for the tariffs and not the 2015. So that means the tariffs and the prices won't go seriously up, so the expansion will not be dramatic. So inflation rates will not go up. About the expansion of the paid parkings, starting from 25 December to 25th December, we expand the paid parking zone in Moscow city. To say it again, 95% of all the propositions were coming from the citizens of Moscow city and from the deputies of the government. So the parking will not be expanded to living areas. We are not going to even discuss any decisions like that. So there will not be any paid parking in living areas. It will still be free, as well as the internal house areas. It is this kind of decision can only be taken by the citizens of the area and not by the government. About all the streets that are going to be expanded, the information is open. It is in open access on the transport department's website of Moscow government. So we are not going to discuss any further steps. We will implement and expand the zone of paid parking starting 25th December, and later we will come back to this.
Mr. Mayor, if I understand it correctly, you have introduced paid parking in downtown Moscow, and you also bought in a fleet of tow trucks, which Moscow had never had so many before, and I would love to know how many there are. Some people love it. They say the downtown moves much faster. Obviously, some people are upset by having to pay for parking. How could you assess the results? And one of the transportation experts we were at the session with said part of the issue is just re-educating the public. They have to get used to new methods. So how hard is it to get Muscovites to accept new methods?
Для многих этот вопрос, если вы не против, я отвечу по-русски.
Yeah, so it's a question I'll answer in Russian. In Moscow, it is a very clear question. We said the numbers, we have the figures, we see the effects. So many people in Moscow already see the results of the paid parkings in downtown Moscow. It's not the opinion of Moscow government, despite the fact that currently we probably is the only government that have the infrastructure for measuring the effect of paid parkings in the city centers. We think that this helped us to greatly increase by 10% the speed of movement and circulation in the downtown Moscow. And the number of experts that are doing the monitoring of transport system in Moscow give even bigger figures. But I have to say that the effect is there, it is real, and the figures that I gave you in the beginning of our discussion, when in 2014 the number of cars came up 250,000 cars, and it was the same in 2013 when 300,000 cars were bought in Moscow transportation hub. So when you speak about circulation with these figures, and the circulation even gets better. So I gave you the number of the car park expansion, and you can see how the circulation improved despite that. Have much more cars, but the circulation is better, so it is quite clear. The effect is quite clear, despite the fact that many people saw this measure as not very popular. It gave us possibility to really move throughout the city.
Vladian Capello from TASS. Maxim, when the second competition will be announced for buying the second generation trains for Moscow Metropolitan? What will be the budget and what number of participants? We will announce it when will be ended the first tour of the competition. The procedure is not finished yet. The approximative volume of the second competition will be as the first one, as far as the number of cars will be concerned and the budget. That's why we think that by the end of this year we will know the results of the first competition and the decision will be made when the second competition will be organized. It won't be too late for us. We will not wait too much long. Maybe in the beginning of the next year all those decisions will be made. As far as the number of participants is concerned, it's difficult to say because in the economics we face lots of changings. First of all, related to the attractiveness of investment. The main emphasis of our competition is as follows. The Moscow Metro pay to the cars during 15 years with 8.2% of interest. In rubles, 8 and 2% of interest is not an easy situation. We want to sign the first contract with that conditions, and for the second competition, we think that we will not change the conditions, so the interest will be 8.25. Ksenia from BBC Russia. What is the budget of the transport program by 2020? And will it be amended due to the upgoing political situation? The transportation program and the social protection program is one of our two of the most secured ones. I'm trying to find the exact figure. Wait a second, please. It's a rather big program, and many issues are supposed to be solved. I cannot find the exact figure. I will answer to your question a bit later. Another question, please? That will be the last question. Two questions, if you don't mind, but they are interconnected. One of the reasons why we have a bad speed of transport is the illegal and bad organized parking on the main backbones. It's the main who is parking their cars. They are illegal taxi drivers. How you think to fight against illegal taxi drivers, not in the city center, but in the dormitory districts? You have two lines, and in the better situation you have only one line that you can use because the second line is blocked by the illegal taxi drivers. Thank you. It's a good question. The responsibility to combat illegal taxi drivers is on the field of police, Rostransportnadzor, and just a bit from the government of Moscow. Rostransportnadzor and the police each day stops from 30 to 50 buses. They are either illegal, but the majority is a bus arriving from other regions of the Russian Federation as if they were rented buses. With the support of the Ministry of Transportation on the level of vice ministers, they control this issue almost on a daily basis. I know that the situation is getting better, and we are asking private transport transport companies to provide us with the information. We are the main points of such an illegal parkings, of illegal taxi and bus drivers. And we'll try to cooperate with legal public transportation companies in order to combat it. Our main tool is a very fast reaction. So the work is on its way. A very detailed plan is coordinated with the government of the Moscow region, and together with the region authorities, we will continue to combat such an illegal activity. You want to know about illegal taxi drivers? Yes. It is pure the responsibility of the police. Moscow police is in charge of that, and every day we see the increase of the number of stopped illegal taxi drivers. More than 50,000 taxis were arrested this year. Thank you for your